Easter Sunday, 1929, Fifth Avenue, New York City. The morning sun breaks through the gaps between the skyscrapers, casting long shadows across the parade route. Crowds line the streets dressed in their Sunday best, waiting for the annual Easter parade to begin. Then something happens that will change American culture forever. A group of young, fashionable women step into the street. On cue, they reach into their purses and pull out cigarettes. And in perfect sync, they light up. Now, this might not sound like a revolution to you, but in 1929, women smoking in public is frowned upon. It's something respectable women simply don't do. But these women aren't just smoking, they're making a bold statement. At least that's what the newspapers say. The photographers are already in position. They were tipped off in advance. Within hours, images of these women will be in newspapers across America with headlines about women's liberation and social progress. The women aren't lighting cigarettes. They're lighting torches of freedom, symbols of female empowerment, a strike against outdated social restrictions. Now, this looks like a spontaneous political protest, but it's not. It's an ad campaign designed by one man, Edward Bernays, Sigmund Freud's nephew, the man who figured out how to bypass our rational mind and sell directly to your unconscious. This isn't just about cigarettes. It's about how one brilliant psychopath created the blueprint for controlling human behavior. A blueprint that is still being used today. It chooses what you buy, who you vote for, and what you believe. Bernays' own writings lay it all out. His campaigns from the 1920s followed the same pattern as model social media algorithms. We're all living in a world designed by a man who believed democracy itself needs mass manipulation. This is how one person taught the world how to control you. Vienna, late 1800s. A young Edward Bernays grows up in the shadow of his uncle's reputation. Sigmund Freud is revolutionizing how we understand the human mind. He's proving that people don't act rationally, that unconscious desires drive human behavior in ways we don't even recognize. Most people hear Freud's theories and think about therapy, an attempt to understand themselves better. But young Edward sees something different. He sees opportunity. If people are driven by unconscious desires, then whoever understands those desires controls the people. That makes sense. Bernays moves to America, and by the 1920s, he's starting to test the theories. While other companies are explaining why their products are superior, listing features and benefits like they're talking to rational consumers, Bernays is doing something completely different. He's not selling products. He sells emotion, feelings. In 1928, he publishes a book called Propaganda. Not exactly the most subtle title, but let me read you what he wrote. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is important in a democratic society. Did you catch that? He's not saying manipulation is a necessary evil. He's saying it's essential to democracy itself. So not informing people, not educating people, but manipulating them, because Bernays figured out something that still powers every ad, every political campaign, and every social media algorithm you encounter today. He realized that if you control people's unconscious desires, you control their behavior without them ever realizing they're being controlled. They'll make choices that serve the company's interests while believing they're making free decisions that serve their own. That Easter Sunday campaign wasn't about selling cigarettes. It was about redesigning how an entire culture thought about women, freedom, and rebellion. The American Tobacco Company wasn't buying ad space. They were buying a revolution. And it worked. Within months, women started smoking in public. Bernays had transformed corporate greed into a liberation movement. Women thought they were fighting for equality, but they were actually lining the pockets of big tobacco by actions of their own choosing. The technique was perfect. Take people's genuine emotions and redirect them towards your goals. It's a classic con man act. Plant suggestions, little seeds, and then make them feel like they came up with it themselves. The cigarette campaign was a great victory, but Edward was just warming up. Guatemala City, 1951. President Yabaco Arbenz is implementing land reforms. He's taking unused land from the United Fruit Company and giving it back to landless peasants. It's a beautiful reform, exactly the kind of thing democracies are supposed to do when citizens demand change. There's a problem. The United Fruit Company is massive. They control vast banana plantations throughout Central America. And they're not interested in democracy, not when it threatens their bottom line. So they hired Edward Bernays. Now, Bernays can't just run the cigarette playbook in Guatemala. He needs something bigger. He needs to turn American public opinion against the policies of Arbenz. He starts by feeding stories to the American press, not about land reform or economic policy, but about communism. This is 1951. The Cold War is heating up and Americans are terrified of the Soviet expansion. Bernays runs articles in major newspapers describing Guatemala as a Soviet stronghold in the Americas. He arranges for American reporters to visit Guatemala on guided tours that show them carefully selected evidence of communist influence. He's not lying exactly. He's just framing reality in a way that triggers specific emotional responses. The American public becomes convinced that Guatemala is about to become the next Cuba. Congress starts demanding action. Then the CIA gets involved. In 1954, they orchestrate a coup that overthrows Arbenz. They install a military dictatorship that reverses all the land reforms. The United Fruit Company gets their land back. And over the next 4 decades, Guatemala descends into a civil war that kills 200,000 people. All because Bernays understood how to manipulate public opinion. He didn't fire a single shot. He just wrote press releases. Okay, so Bernays figured out how to manipulate people using newspapers and radio. But that was almost a century ago. Surely by now we've caught on to this scheme, right? Wrong. Every technique Bernays developed is now automated, personalized, and running 24/7 on your phone. Think about how Facebook works. The algorithm monitors everything you interact with. It learns what triggers your emotional responses. Then it serves you content designed to keep you engaged as long as possible. The goal is not to inform you, it's to keep you scrolling. But it gets worse. When Bernays ran his campaigns, everyone saw the same message: man, woman, Democrat, or Republican. Modern algorithms don't work that way. They create personalized manipulation campaigns targeted to your specific psychological profile. Cambridge Analytica harvested data from 87 million Facebook users. They built psychological profiles on each person. Then they created custom political ads designed to exploit individual vulnerabilities. The public was outraged and we shut Cambridge Analytica down in 2018. Everyone celebrated. Problem solved, right? Not really. This was just one company. Many others provide the same services to anyone who's willing to pay. The targeting is incredibly sophisticated now. These algorithms can identify your personality type, your political leanings, your emotional triggers, just from your online behavior. Then they serve you content designed to influence your opinions and actions. But you know what's the most insidious part? It doesn't feel like manipulation. Instagram doesn't force you to buy products. It just makes you feel inadequate until you want to buy them. YouTube doesn't force you to watch certain content. It just gradually recommends content you normally wouldn't watch until that becomes your new normal. TikTok's algorithm is even more sophisticated. It can detect micro-expressions while you watch videos. It can adjust recommendations based on emotional responses you didn't even know you had. The app learns to trigger dopamine responses even more effectively than a slot machine, all using Bernays' old playbook. Guatemala, 1954. Bernays manufactured consent for a coup using newspapers and radio. America, 2016. Foreign governments interfere in elections using Facebook and Twitter. The technique is identical. The scale is just bigger. Russian interference wasn't about hacking voting machines. It was about applying Bernays' psychological manipulation through social media. They created fake accounts. They amplified divisive content. They organized protests on both sides of the political landscape. The goal wasn't to support any particular candidate. The goal was to increase conflict and decrease trust in democratic institutions. A classic Julius Caesar divide and conquer. And the shitty is, it's almost impossible to detect. When you share, let's say, political content, you're making a choice based on your own beliefs, right? The fact that those beliefs were shaped by algorithms designed to serve a foreign interest is invisible to you. Domestic political campaigns use the same techniques. They don't just buy ads, they create campaigns designed to trigger specific psychological responses. The goal isn't to inform voters about policy, it's to create emotional narratives that influence voting behavior. Corporations have perfected it too. Nike doesn't sell shoes, they sell the feeling of being an athlete. Apple doesn't sell phones, they sell the feeling of being creative and innovative. Every brand, every campaign, every algorithm is using techniques developed by Bernays nearly a century ago. Living in Bernays' world, though, takes a toll. We're constantly being manipulated by people who understand our brains better than we do. Every ad, every political message, every social media post is designed to bypass critical thinking and trigger unconscious responses. We think we're making independent choices, but we're actually responding to psychological programming designed to serve other people. This creates a society where people feel anxious, dissatisfied, and angry without really understanding why. We're constantly being told we need things we actually don't need. We should fear threats that don't really exist, that our problems can be solved by buying, voting, or clicking in ways that benefit corporations and political parties rather than ourselves. Young people are the biggest targets. They've grown up surrounded by algorithm manipulation designed to shape their desires, beliefs, and behaviors. Many have never experienced making choices without sophisticated psychological pressure. The Guatemala coup killed 200,000 people over decades of civil war. Modern manipulation campaigns don't require violence, luckily. They achieve control by making people act against their own interests, while believing they're making free choices. Understanding Bernays isn't about becoming paranoid, it's about recognizing how manipulation works so you can make your own decisions. The techniques he developed aren't inherently evil, but they become dangerous when they're used to target your well-being. Ask yourself this: when you want to buy something, vote for someone, or share content online, are you responding to rational thinking or emotional triggers? Are you being informed about facts, or are you feeling guided emotions that lead to predictable behaviors? The most important defense is understanding that your unconscious mind is constantly being targeted. Recognizing this does not make you immune to manipulation, of course not, but it makes you better at noticing when it's happening. Next time you feel a sudden urge to buy something, share content, or support a political position, pause for a second. Ask yourself, am I responding to information that helps me, or am I being manipulated by someone who understands my psychology better than I do? Because in Bernays' world, the one question they don't want you to ask is whether your thoughts are actually your own. Edward Bernays died in 1995 at the age of 103. He lived long enough to see his techniques become the foundation of modern advertising. He created tools that could enhance human communication and understanding, but they've mostly been used to exploit human psychology for profit and power. The choice we face isn't whether these techniques will be used, they're already being used on us every day. The choice is whether we'll understand how they work well enough to maintain some control over our own thoughts and decisions. That Easter Sunday in 1929, those women who were lighting cigarettes thought they were fighting for liberation. They were actually performing in an ad designed to exploit their desire for freedom. The same thing is happening to you and to me right now, on our phones, in our feed, in every targeted ad and recommended video. Unless we move to a hidden tribe in the jungles of South America, there is no way to stop it. But recognizing the technique is the first step. Thanks for watching. I'm Henry, and this was What Now?